Google Stadia, it's dead. Gone. Bye-bye. Rest in spaghetti Google confetti. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I wouldn't blame you, because Stadia was... Who cares? Who cares about this? I didn't. Stadia was Google's bold, albeit shortly lived attempt to break into the gaming industry through the power of the cloud. According to Google, Stadia is being shut down as a cost-cutting measure, but the reason it's being shut down as a cost-cutting measure is because it was costing Google money. As in, it wasn't making any. I remember the announcement of Stadia like it was yesterday, which isn't hard because it wasn't that long ago. As I watched them go on about how Stadia was gonna change the world, I just thought, wow, when this service fails in a few years, I'll get to make a video on it. And here we are, about 3 years later, and this is that video. So why did Stadia fail? Well, for one, it was a cloud gaming platform created by Google. The odds of success were fairly low. The reason Google made this is they wanted into gaming. They wanted their own Xbox or PlayStation, and Stadia, that was their way to break in. They figured that since cloud gaming is an emerging technology, if they can get in on the ground floor, they could be one of the biggest names once/if it ever takes off. But that would take a long time. Any gaming platform takes a long time to become successful and even longer to become profitable. You gotta pay publishers and developers to make games for the service. You gotta maintain servers that nobody is going to use for a few years. And you gotta bring something new to the table while competing with brands that have been around for decades. It requires a lot of risk, a lot of patience, and a deep understanding of the industry and its consumers to bring people to your platform. Google doesn't do this. They make a lot of projects, hope a few succeed, and cancel the rest as soon as they don't meet expectations. In the tech market, this makes sense. It's a fine strategy. You always gotta stay ahead of the competition in the new emerging markets. Tech companies don't like to put all their eggs in one basket, because if that basket spills over, they don't have any more eggs. But gaming doesn't work this way. Cloud gaming is a niche market. Most people that play games don't even care about it. So no matter what, it was gonna take a long time for this to take off. At best, Stadia would have taken a few years to start making any money, and Google doesn't wait very long before canning projects, so it seemed inevitable. But I expected Stadia to fail for more reasons than it was simply just a Google product. See, the way they decided to distribute games on Stadia is one of the most baffling decisions I've ever seen in the gaming industry. The service was a cloud streaming platform, and when you imagine a streaming service, you tend to think of subscription models. Pay a few bucks a month and get access to a large library of content. Stadia just didn't do this. There was a free tier and a $10 a month tier, and both gave you access to a few games. But most games needed to be purchased outright. Yeah, you had to pay standard video game prices. These were games that you couldn't download, games that were reliant on a strong internet connection, games that you only had access to for as long as Stadia still existed. Yeah, I have no idea why they did this. The whole purpose of cloud streaming is that accessibility, the fact that you can select from a large library of games and play them in an instant. For a while, I just assumed Google didn't do this because they didn't want to invest that much money into Stadia, that a Game Pass style service would have been too costly or too risky for a company like Google to justify. But then they started putting a lot of money into the platform, at least through the marketing, through the exclusive deals, through buying development studios, and paying developers to port games to Stadia. It was recently revealed that they were trying to get Death Stranding 2 as a Stadia exclusive. And the only reason that didn't happen was because Google didn't like the fact it was a single-player game. Whether that was a good or stupid decision, I'll let you decide, but the fact remains, they were willing to put money into this project. Yeah, when I saw this announcement that you had to pay for games, I knew this thing was dead on arrival. Then once the service actually launched, it seemed to get worse, because viral clips were surfacing of the abhorrent latency, which did nothing to sway people who were already uncertain about cloud gaming in the first place. Stadia also had the issue of its game lineup. Unlike Xbox Cloud Streaming or PS Now or Nvidia GeForce Cloud, whatever they call it, every game on Stadia needed to be ported over. You can't just take the PC version and slap it in. And I'm certain Google did spend a pretty penny convincing publishers and developers to make Stadia exclusive ports. And I'm also pretty certain they did not make their money back. Over the years, Stadia's latency improved, more titles reached the platform, but most people didn't care. I'm not gonna go over the whole history of Stadia cause you don't care, I don't care, but it was bad. Every few months, something bad would happen. But now since Stadia is gone, I want to try and take the conversation in a different direction. Stadia failed for a lot of reasons, more than I could possibly name, but it might be more productive or entertaining to look at how it could have succeeded. It would have been tough, but if Google played their cards exactly right, Stadia could have maybe had a chance. Okay, I think Google needed to be a lot more ambitious, to really give it their all, to throw around a lot of money in the appropriate directions. This platform couldn't just match what Xbox and PlayStation were doing, they needed to surpass them in every single way to get people over here. People have invested hundreds or thousands of dollars and hours into these platforms, so Google needed to get aggressive. Obviously, get rid of that pricing model. Make a subscription service. Next, they needed exclusives. And I know Stadia had a few, but I'm talking about more high-profile titles. No disrespect to the developers, of course, but for Google, they needed to captivate the mass audience to get properties and sequels to existing popular franchises. I know it's easy to just say, spend more money, but this was the only way it was ever going to work. And it seems like other companies thought Google was gonna do this too. Honestly, I think the announcement of Stadia and Google's entrance into the gaming industry put a lot of fear into Microsoft to the point where they bought up Bethesda and Activision, because they thought if they don't seal them in right now, Google or Amazon could buy them up. But I think most importantly, Stadia just needed to be a real actual box, a game console. I know what I'm describing is the exact opposite of what Google was trying to do, but cloud streaming as a technology, it's just too early. It would cost significantly more, but it was the only way this platform could have survived the next few years. Even if they acquired a bunch of studios and publishers, it really wouldn't have mattered because a lot of people just wouldn't be able to or wouldn't want to use a cloud streaming service. We know the specifications of Stadia's hardware, and it would have been at least mildly competitive for a console and the time it released. It was somewhere between the last gen refresh models and the new consoles. Hindsight is 2020, and well, 2020, as in the year 2020, would have been perfect for a Stadia game console. A lot of people had a lot of time on their hands for some reason, and people that normally wouldn't consider buying a console went out and bought one during this time. If Stadia was reasonably priced and Google had thrown around just so much money to buy up everything, it could have had a chance. And while the next generation would start and the competition would be superior on a technical level, Stadia might differentiate itself with a lower price point, its exclusive lineup, and the fact that it wouldn't have been impossible to get like the PS5 or Series X. One, because the demand would be slightly lower, and also because it's been around for a while. I know this is kind of cheating. There's no way Google would have been able to predict what would happen in the future and the mass chip shortages, but if they had a chance, it was right then. Right here, Stadia's closure shouldn't be that surprising. The service was close to death every few months. Hopefully this is a lesson to not invest thousands of hours into a platform that is very obviously going to fail, and don't waste time developing for a platform that is very obviously going to fail unless you get paid up front. The only real silver lining here seems to be the fact that Google is at least refunding people that bought hardware and software from Stadia, so anybody that did buy a game for this platform got to kind of play it for free. But sadly, they will not be reimbursing the $10 a month subscription charge, which apparently I've had because I signed up for the service when I made the last video about Stadia and I forgot to unsubscribe. So, well, you can't win them all, can ya?